Well guys, this week we're back on the love trying to get it ready for the zip tie drags. We are on a crazy schedule here and I pray we make it. We're going to push as hard as we can. We'll get it done. So anyway, what I got to do today is I'm going to start with the dash. We'll start framing it and then sheeting it. So let's get to it. So I've got the entire framing of the dash in. Now what we're going to do is take the first sheet, butt it up to the windshield. I'm going to tack it from below where I left about an inch of material when I cut out the other dash. So I'm going to tack it to it, and then we're going to attempt to bend the whole sheet around the roll cage and then self-taper it on the bottom. The plan is that way it has a nice rounded edge on the top of the dash. So let's see what happens. Well, dash is in. It's all tacked up and in place. I'm not 100% sure on how I'm going to finish it, but I kind of like the raw look and everything else, so I might just come in with the TIG and add the rest of the spot welds on it and run it like that. Weld everything from behind for strength, but you know, on the surface just do the tack welds. But it's good for now to move on to the next item. I'll do all the finish work on it when I get ready to start installing everything. So next item up is the front end. So I need to go get the core support, fenders, all that stuff, bring it in here and start mocking that up. Alright, so I tacked the core support and the inner fender wells back to the truck. Well, most of it, because some of it I guess I went full Bucky Beaver and just chewed it to crap taking it apart. The rest of the stuff I cut with a sawzall or a grinder, so I knew exactly about a 16th to an 1/8 inch gap should match where it was. But on the driver's side, I don't know what I was thinking. I just hacked and hacked and hacked, so I had to weld a piece of metal to space it out to where I thought it should be. So because I did that, I got to hang the fender back on it, put a couple bolts in it and make sure it's lined up. So once I have that, then I can take the fenders back off and kind of figure out where my bars are going to go, what's going to hold it. My plan is literally not to have the inner fender wells and only to have the outer sections of the core support for the headlights and whatnot. So I want to be able to cut the center out to be able to pull the motor when I need to. So we'll run bars from the cage out down to the front of the frame, just to straighten the frame up, and then we'll put a crossbar in that we can unbolt and remove. So that's the plan. For right now, I got to get these fenders back on and see how bad it is. Alright, well, I got lucky and everything bolted right back up. So my guesstimation on that side was spot on. So I've tacked everything up, bolted the other things up. So now what I need to do is hole saw and hole through here so that I can run the bar from the cage out, turn and go down to the front of the frame. Now this is unnecessary for what I'm building, but I overbuild everything, so that's what I'm gonna do. So first off, we're gonna go ahead and center punch these, then drill a pilot hole, because trying to drill with the pilot on the hole saw never works out well because it's a much bigger bit. So if I drill a pilot, it should stay in the hole and I can work my way through it. All right, well, I welded 120 wall 2x6 tubing, 3-inch pieces onto the sides of the frame in the front. The reason I couldn't just come down straight on the frame is the steering box is there. So to make them even, I did it on both sides. Now, once I got a steering wheel on this thing and I can turn the wheels, I might need to trim them just a little bit, but it's okay. We're going 1 3/4 inch tubing close to the frame, so it should be plenty we can cut off if we need to. Putting in the dash first was not a good idea. What I'm doing is taking 1-inch tubing, and I've taken angle iron and put it in here already, so I'm not just welding just to the body. So I put right angle in here. Now I'm taking 1-inch tubing and I've cut it to fit into the angle iron and right to the main bar here. And what this is going to do is this is going to support the core support so we can cut away the inner fenders completely. So literally there'll be nothing but the fender bolt to the front and the back, and that's it. So what we're doing is just making more clearance in here so it's easier to work on. Alright, well, since this is welded in now, we've supported the core support to the main bar here, we should be able to remove the fender, cut away the inner fender, and put the fender back on. It should match up. Because we have a bolt down here, and we got these two braces here, it should stay in place while we do this. So I've sat here for the past hour trying to figure out how I'm going to fit this radiator in here, because the old one sat back here and got about 3 inches of engine past where it sat. So the other thing is I'm trying to use the radiator out of the Blazer I had. It's way too big for this truck, but I only have two options. One, make it work here, or two, plumb it all the way to the bed of the truck. Never done that before, so I'm kind of intrigued by it, but at the same time, pressed for time here. So working out kinks and issues with that is not a problem I need. So the only thing I can do is start cutting all this core out, because I need to be able to pull the engine again anyway, because we haven't put the flywheel or the clutch in yet, or any of that, and I kind of like the rattle can rebuild the front. So that's what I'm going to do, is say screw it, start cutting, remove all this unneeded stuff, and then see how the radiator fits and see if it's possible to make it fit. So anyway, let's cut shit up. Well, I've got everything cut out to fit the radiator, but when I'm doing the measurements with the cooling fan and everything else, I'm gonna have to push it 7 inches past the frame. It's a lot farther I want it to go, but it's either this or put it in the bed of the truck. I don't have the time or the funds to buy the aluminum piping to run it to the back of the truck. I know some guys say you can use aluminized muffler tubing. Doesn't matter. At this point, I've got to make it. I've got 12 days. So I've got to just get it in here. So I'm going to mount it out front here. Hopefully the hood will cover out to about here. So I'll get it figured out. But so right now what I got to do is build a support to come out and hold the radiator. My radiator has no tabs on it, so it can't be as simple as bolting it. I've got to make a sandwich mount to hold the bottom and the top. So for right now, I'm going to go ahead and build out that bottom and get it in there, and then we'll build the top. Okay, so I made these mounts on the bottom so they're holding it. So now what we're going to do is make a removable bar that goes across the core support. Now that bar, the reason I'm making it removable is so I can lift it out, take the radiator out, and then pull the engine straight through the opening. So what I'm going to do is I've got some flanges that I've already drilled. I don't know where these came from, but steel flanges. I drilled them, put bolts through them, and welded the nuts on the back so that we can weld these in place. Of course, I'm gonna have to put another piece of metal in here, but weld these in place and then be able to undo the 4 bolts and the bar comes out. All right, just like that, we've added the flanges. This bar here can be replaced, no problem. So now I'll put the grill in, mock it back up, and start pulling measurements to make the 2 upper pieces that are going to come forward and hold down the top of the radiator. Alright, well we have all 4 mounts made, well the clamshell pieces made, that are going to hold the radiator in place. Now the bottom ones are already attached to the bracket. The top ones are ready to have the brackets made. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clamp this thing down as tight as it would go because it's sandwiched in. We're going to clamp it down and then measure and make the top brackets. Now you might have noticed that I've taken rubber and insulated between the steel bracket and the aluminum radiator. You never want aluminum and steel bolted together. You want to have some type of insulator in between them. Not just for vibration, but other reasons that cause with the water flowing through the aluminum radiator. So you want to have rubber in there. Now, I've done it my way because I can't just run out and buy rubber whenever I need it. I have to come up with something I have. So, if you might have noticed the rubber looks a little weird, I used a dirt bike tire from a little kid's 50 from when my kids were little and they were racing. I have a problem with tires. I don't know why, but they just keep showing up. So I use them for stuff, body mounts, whatever. I cut them out of it. I just reuse them. So what I did is I cut a piece like this out, then I take a razor knife, cut all the knobbies off, and then I cut the steel belt out, and I'm left with just a horseshoe piece of rubber which fits perfectly over the radiator. So I've cut those, got those all ready, and then the clamshell piece is over it. So now I'll clamp it down and we'll start making these upper brackets and the radiator mount will be done. Alright, so look, we cut off the shock mounts earlier because of the headers. So we've had to come up with a new way to mount the shocks. Now we capped these off before. Okay, we cut them and it was just a hoop over. We cut them. We took about 1.5 to 2 inches off. Okay, now I'm using a stronger shock and I've got them bottomed out right now. But there's plenty more play in the truck to go down. So what we need to do is move it up probably about 4 inches. Okay, so what I've decided to do is I'm going to take a piece of 2x3 1/4 inch wall tubing. Now I'm taking it and I'm going to come out like this. Okay, now the trick to it all is we want to be able to cut it so we've got a flat surface here for the top of the shock to come through. So what we're doing now is we've taken a piece already and we've cut this relief. Now there's a method to my madness. Okay, but here, so what we're gonna do is, I've already cut this halfway through. We're gonna hammer this piece over so that it's flat. We'll hammer it here, we'll weld it, and then we'll cut away the bottom half for the shock to come through. So it'll go on just like this, and this will be hammered flat, and there'll be an opening to bring the shock up through, and it'll bring our shock mount out 3 inches and make the shocks more vertical. Okay, so by doing all this, it's going to make the shocks more straight up and down, and they're going to clear the headers on the other side no problem. Now, just like that, this is hammered over. I can re-weld this back together here and reinforce this cut by welding it. Then we can mark and cut our hole out here for the shock to come up through. Alright guys, well I got the shock mounts done. Now I'll try to get you guys a good shot of it. So pretty much they're going to sit just like this. I have the hole there for the top shock. I had to cut all this away to make room for it to go in. So this is going to weld right on the old shock perch, cut it out to clear the header. Well guys, it's Tuesday night. I just got up from work. I'm gonna try to knock out a few things before I have to go in and edit this video and post it for the week. So what I'm gonna try to do is pull the engine out of the truck right now. Everything's done with mock-up, so let's get the engine out so I can finish all the welds and get it all done. Well, we got a lot done this week, but the fact of the matter is we have over 50 items on the list here to get done. We've got 9 days left. 2 of those are full days, the rest of them are a couple hours after work, before and after work. So I'm gonna be pushing hard to get this done. But as you can see, we got a good amount done. The front's all done, welded up. Everything's situated up there. I just need to finish the firewall. Then inside floorboard's all welded, tunnel's done, dash is far enough. I got a seat in, but the big thing that's really got me worried is I have to shorten this truck. I've got to cut the rear end, I got to cut the frame and move it short, because a new drive shaft for this is $550. I can't do it. So I'm cutting the truck and rolling it to match the freaking drive shaft I have. It's not the way I want to do it, but you do what you can afford, and that's what I can afford to do. So probably Saturday I'll be cutting this thing and shortening it up. I got to shorten it about 18 inches. So that'll be on the next video. But all right guys, well do me a favor, I appreciate you watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and here's some other links over here. All right guys, have a great night.